Good afternoon, Mavs fans. Welcome to Pod Mavericks. Kirk, your enthusiasm. You are joined by myself and friend of the show, Jason Gallagher, for a live emergency podcast. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, we have to talk about the Matisse Thybulle thing. No, we fucking don't. No, we don't. maybe we will later, but not right now. What we're going to talk about today is ESPN decided to choose violence. And I want to share with you what they decided to do today on their ESPN tab, where they shared this kind of abomination of a tweet. Who are you taking in their prime? A side-by-side photo for those of you who are listening on the show or on the podcast, a side-by-side of Kevin Garnett and Dirk Nowitzki, listing off some accolades. First for Kevin Garnett, one-time NBA champion, one-time Most Valuable Player award, one-time Defensive Player of the Year award, 15-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA First Team, 9-time All-NBA Defensive First Team. Then Dirk Nowitzki, one-time NBA champion, one-time Most Valuable Player award, one-time Finals MVP award, 14-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA First Team, 5-time All-NBA Second Team, and then they left this part off, 3-time All-NBA Third Team. Jason, how are you?
I'm great, man. I'm great. You know, had a great 4th of July summer day. Mm-hmm. And then I woke up and I was like, it's going to be so chill. And then I saw this and I was like, what are we doing? And
they chose fireworks, additional fireworks.
They did. And, you know, it's been an interesting day reading a lot of different perspectives on the matter. And, you know, that's a nice way of putting it. And what I want to do on this podcast is I want to start out with a story that you are familiar with, that I have. Stories. You know, I'm going to keep it somewhat vague. But in 2012, I got to have some lunch with a person who is an NBA GM at the time. And I asked him about this hypothetical. Okay. And essentially, what I said was, knowing what we know now, who would you take? And he said, I think every single GM in the league would take Dirk over KG without question. And a lot of the reason is not because KG isn't an amazing defender, an awesome player, like none of that. It's just what Dirk was good at was that valuable. Okay. And that's what it comes down to. And I liken it a little bit to Steph, not because I think that they play a similar game, but because what Steph is good at is like priceless to any organization. Not only is the player extremely sort of selfless in terms of their personality, so in terms of a locker room presence, that's an easy thing to build around. But then also, offensive brilliance is a lot more valuable than defensive brilliance. And no actual basketball mind that is smart would ever tell you otherwise, unless you want to sound cute on Twitter. That's the only thing. Okay? Because here's what Dirk was, and you know this. You could run any sort of scheme, okay? And this is the same thing with Steph a little bit. You could run any scheme. You could run a secondary action. If everything fails, guess what you get to do? You get to feed it to somebody who can reliably score at kind of any place on the floor. So that is just so freaking valuable in the NBA that I don't care how good someone is on defense, you take that anytime. And on top of that, it's much, much, much easier to build pieces around that centerpiece. So I I cannot believe that we are still talking about this. And the reason why that tweet is particularly funny is because they talk about it like we're talking about Chris Paul versus Bob Cousy. No, these were contemporaries at the same position that played each other a decent amount. And almost every time, maybe not even in the head-to-head record, which a lot of people seem to be thinking I'm implying. I'm talking about head-to-head matchups when they're on the floor with each other. Nothing KG did ever affected Dirk.
At all. Which
ever. Like ever, even in the losses, it never affected Dirk. And so that's why I just like can't get over this sort of like, let's just talk a hypothetical. It's not hypothetical. We have the evidence. We have
the tape
in front of our eyes.
Right.
And we're still talking about it like it's a debate. You know what Mavs fans don't do? They never say, let's talk Dirk versus Tim Duncan, because we've seen it better. Like, I don't even know why we're doing this with Dirk and KG. Yes, KG was fun and he was awesome, but like he couldn't do anything about Dirk.
So they only played each other once in the playoffs.
Yes.
The Mavericks blanked the Minnesota Timberwolves 3-0 in it was a fantastic series. Like, you go look at the box scores and the averages over 3 games. It's some of the silliest numbers I've ever seen to this day in a series for both KG and for Dirk. But let me read you a quote from NBA champion, Blazers head coach Chauncey Billups, who was a part of that team. He said, "I really thought KG was the best 4-man in the league, and I thought he was going to really lock Dirk down. I think he, meaning Dirk, averaged 30 and 15 on us. KG was talking as much stuff as he could. We tried everything. It was just like, this dude is different. He's just different." And where you and I, we're rapidly approaching our old man yells at the sky portion of our life, because as we've spent 15 plus years on social media, we're really on Twitter, close to 20 years on social media, we're finding more and more of the youth who, and I mean this, it's not their fault that you weren't born then, but if I can tell by your avatar, your Twitter, your picture, that you were born in the 2000s, I don't care. You weren't there. You didn't watch the games. Yeah. The 2000s Mavericks, and they were overshadowed by the 2000 Spurs and to a certain extent the Lakers. But the 2000 Mavericks won 50 games for 12 straight years. There were no playoff absences, nothing. I'm pretty sure KG's Minnesota Timberwolves missed the playoffs for 5 straight years. Now, that opens up a whole bunch of other interesting arguments, which if you're a Wolves fan happening to listen to this, if you're here live, welcome. Why? Yeah. We're not here. Like, I actually quite enjoy Kevin Garnett as the player. I think he would be, if he had just stepped back 2 feet on most of the long jumpers he took, like he would have been an incredible player in the pace and space era, because basketball is just different in the early 2000s. I'm not even sure where to go next, because you and I talked about this 15 minutes before we hopped on. Which element of what I kind of brought up is interesting to you?
I want to go through a couple things. First off, I think the other reason why a lot of people do argue for KG is that it's a fascinating discussion, but I actually do think that KG is he's one of those players that would fit in any era in a way. And I think Dirk is too, but KG, like, you can visualize it almost even more, like for some reason in my mind. So I could see
defense, like I'm sorry to cut you off. What you talked about defensively earlier, you said offense always beats good defense, but that's not, we haven't done enough justice to just how much of a game-changing defensive player Kevin Garnett actually was. That's what made Dirk destroying him so fucking insane, because KG held everyone down.
Right. And so if you're a younger person, if you were born in, say, 1998, and you look at the two styles, you would say, I could see that one guy really, really crushing it. But the points for Dirk, I mean, I think just the very concept of prime is really interesting, because Dirk has a lot of prime, like a lot of different types of prime. And again, so it's like the 2011 run is arguably not his prime, which is sort of insane.
He's 32.
And that's the part that's the part where I'm just sort of like, really, you really like. It would be like a much more entertaining, fun thing, but like Dirk, I mean, his prolonged whatever. So the thing that I want to come to you with, and you can bring your own, is sort of since I tweeted what I tweeted, that this isn't a hypothetical, we know the answer.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of arguments against Dirk, and so some of these I want to run by you,
sure.
And you feel free to bring to me. So one of them obviously being the defensive aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I've already laid that out. I just don't. I'm sorry. I mean, like, go through the best defenders of all time and the best offensive players of all time, and you tell me which ones you're going to take.
Sure.
Like, it's not even a question, in my opinion. Second, is that the sample size wasn't large enough.
What does that mean? Who fucking cares? You want to talk like
that one? I know it's like well, so he only won. So it's 3 games. You're going to base it off of 3 games, and I'm like, what else do we have?
I base a lot
of the imagination of nothing, or do you want to base it off of the 3 games they played against each other in the playoffs? And sure, the rosters were different, but they played each other. And like you said, if you watch that series, it wasn't a contest. And that's what sports is. Sports is not the Oscars, people. There is results. There is head-to-head matchup results. And Dirk beat the shit out of him head-to-head. Head-to-head.
There are 3 all-time players. There are 3 top, I mean, where you put Pau Gasol. But there are 3 top 50 players who never won a single playoff game against Dirk Nowitzki. Kobe Bryant, Kevin Garnett, Pau Gasol. Didn't win a single game in the playoffs against Dirk. Small sample size. I don't care. He blanked them. That's the way this goes. Sample size in this sort of thing, it's just that's an annoying argument to bring up when talk. Because like not only that, you mentioned it earlier, they did play against each other a ton. 40 regular season games over the course of their career is not nothing. 23 and 17, 6 more games is it's a lot.
It's a decent percentage. And what you know what else is a decent percentage? 100%. That's Dirk's record against KG in the playoffs. 100. So I can't. And you know, another thing too is that like, okay, there are very smart people like who would pick Kevin Garnett.
Sure.
You know, someone just tweeted at me Nekias Duncan's tweet that says Kevin Garnett, and he is somebody that I very much respect. But what's funny here, and what I kind of keep coming back to is like, look, there's one organization that chose to build around Dirk.
And they kind of did so poorly. Dirk just dragged them up.
But it paid off. And like, so it's sort of like, I don't know, when you ask Mavs fans and you ask Wolves fans kind of argue this like strange hypothetical, like, well, but it's like Mavs fans are like, all right, have the debate. We did it. We picked our guy. It worked out for a long time. I like literally don't know how this is even a debate. I actually don't. It baffles my brain. It actually, it just does. It just does. Because again, it's like, yeah, I guess if you, somebody responded to the tweet. It was like, if you want to have a debate in the spreadsheets, I'll take KG all day. But like what happened. Yeah. What happened before our eyes actually occurred.
Sure.
And I feel like I'm arguing with like Alex Jones at times where I'm just like, are you for real? Like you're building a case that isn't real and we have evidence. And like, I just kind of can't, my brain really can't wrap my mind around it.
Sure. Well, while everyone else in there in the comments is also trying to wrap their mind around this ridiculous comment, I want you guys to take just a second and go ahead and like that stream down at the bottom of the YouTube page. It is very helpful for me and Josh and Pod Maverick.
While you're doing that, while you're subscribing, once you subscribe to the Old Man and the Three as well.
You have enough subscribers. I checked your page before the show.
We're on a quest. We're on a quest. We just crossed 900,000 subscribers. We're on a quest to 1 million. And it's a lifelong.
I have 1,300 subscribers. So thank you very, very much for your for your comparison point. The other thing that I've that's really sort of chapped my ass is like the teammate discussion. And I love a lot of the 2000 Mavericks teams. I really, really do. The early 2000 Mavericks teams were special. Okay. Correct. But as you go through the 2000s, particularly the post-Steve Nash era, the Mavericks were not hot to trot. I'm pretty sure Dirk played with one other All-Star and Josh, my man Josh Howard, and I want to say it was 2007, and he was an injury replacement. It's not like Dirk played on a cadre of super teams.
Yeah,
he was the floor raiser for so many guys. He helped make Jason Terry's career. Michael Finley is probably a little bit underrated as a Dirk Nowitzki teammate. Yeah, just because by the time at the end of that run in like 2003, Finley played like 6 straight seasons of 40 plus minutes and 80 plus games. Like, it was bananas. But you look at all the centers the Mavericks had, like, it's just like a running joke, some of the teams that he was paired with. So I get that the Wolves had some really troublesome rosters too. I mean, I've taken a look at a lot of them. They are pretty bad, but
yeah.
It's just like it's not KG or Dirk's fault. It's just sort of the way these things go. And, they had opportunities to improve their team. They just kind of didn't. And I think based on the offensive part of what you're talking about, the way KG played on offense, they had to be a defensive minded team. And there's a little bit of a ceiling on that unless you have other really great players. And, Wally Zerbiak was fine. The Troy Hudson was an incredible guard for like a season for them. I mean, I just getting into that level of competition and then the weeds, it's like it goes back to the Spurs conversation you mentioned earlier. Like, we just don't really talk about it because as much as I love Dirk, I recognize like Duncan's better. The end.
Obviously. And it's like, yeah. And then you would also say that Duncan had better teammates, but but we watched the games and Duncan was better. Like, end of story, the end. I'm not going to play revisionist history there. Like, nobody would or nobody should. But I don't know. I look at even the 2006 final. Like, a lot of the examples that people have hit me with are sort of like, wow, Dirk choked here and here and here, and they're all citing sources that are like final.
Which is true, but you know what was cool?
Yeah,
he was there.
Yeah, that's what was going on at the same time. Our other guy was sitting at home, and it's sort of like. It's like, yeah, that finals team started Adrian Griffin, and like it was a weird it wasn't like the 2016's like Warriors,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. I get you
don't get heated anymore. That's what makes this funny. With what you do for a living now, you're kind of in the weeds and you know a lot. And because of that, it takes the sheen, the fan shine, the intensity out of it because they're people. They're not mythological figures. But this still pisses you off, and I think it's great.
I think I just because we know the answer, and I think that's what pisses me off is that like we've just seen it, we know it. Look, one thing that JJ Redick, who I work with, likes to talk about a lot is. There's only like one of the more rare things in the NBA is having a player who is the best and the undisputed best team on a championship winning team. Mm-hmm. Like, and when you go through NBA history, you realize just how rare a player that is. Like really, really rare. In the last 10 seasons, there's like 6. There's 6. It's LeBron, it's Steph, it's Jokic now, it's Giannis, it's Kawhi, and it's KD. And, some Warriors fans will still say Steph over KD. But either way, for the sake of safety, let's say 6 in the last 10 years. You push that back 11, 12 years, Dirk enters that conversation. You push that back even further, it's Kobe, it's Duncan. And then you get to that Boston year, and it's like, that's a debate. I'm sorry. It's a debate.
Oh, they're a great team.
I get why you would say KG was the best player on that team, but he didn't win finals MVP. And it's not like the Iguodala Curry thing. Like Paul Pierce legitimately was the best player on that team.
That was an incredible series.
Wants to take the Finals MVP away from Paul Pierce. Nobody.
No.
So what I'm saying is that, like, just that in itself, and I'm not okay. Let's take the Finals win out of it now. It's like Dirk was the undisputed best player on a team that won 50+ games for 12 seasons in a row. He was the undisputed best player on teams that made multiple Western Conference Finals, multiple NBA Finals. That kind of player is unbelievably rare. It's not even a question. And as much as we like to overhype and overvalue defense, if you're building a team and you have to put your money where your mouth is, you're taking Dirk.
That's wild. And what part of why we do this, and I think we're going to have to keep doing elements of this, is the sheer, like, you go to Dirk's, and really KG's too, but Dirk's is a little bit longer and a little bit wilder because KG just had a slightly earlier fall off because injuries really took a toll on his body. The thing about being a fan of a guy like Dirk Nowitzki is having to defend the fact that people don't understand the 15 of his 21 years were just a relentless march of similar stats, similar, outcomes. And that almost gets taken for granted because he was just night in, night out, so amazing in a way that doesn't get really reflected in how we package highlights now. You have your just some of the big IG accounts out there. Early Dirk would have been a flamethrower on that sort of stuff. People don't particularly, we were in high school and then early in college when because Dirk's only like 6 years older than me. He was a monstrous athlete in a way that's not properly respected because you think of him as a jump shooter, but you like type in Dirk on the Twitter, Dirk Nowitzki on like the Twitter search bar. There's like this dunk that he goes from the right wing where he goes past someone and just yams it down. He was it's not like he was a vertical athlete, but he had such great quick twitch muscles. He was so much faster than everybody else. Charles Barkley tells stories about how Dirk just like ripped the Team USA, like a new one at a certain point.
And not to interject, but it's stuff like that where it's like, I mean, as you said, like, you spend enough time around people around the league that it's like, when enough of them are like, dude, no, it's Dirk. Like, what are we like? It's Dirk. It's like, we've seen it. We know it. Charles Barkley, one of them. He's like, it's Dirk.
Yep. And so it's like we kind of have to fight for the legacy because KG has a little more street cred. He was crazy. There are some great videos of him being crazy. He liked to fight and pick on much smaller players than him. That was a thing that he did. He screamed at everybody and acted kind of like a lunatic. I think I think in today's NBA, some of the things that he did would really get laughed at in a way, like the same way we make fun of Dylan Brooks, like a lot of all bark, no bite bullshit. But it's just, there's a little more hardness to KG's game, and he was more physical of a player. And it's just, explaining to people that Dirk scored 22 points a game in an area that's largely considered like inefficient and players shouldn't shoot from there. Like, there's this ESPN chart where it's like, these are the different zones on the floor that players own. And Dirk owns the mid-range. He owns like 6 of the 24 sections, whereas no one else, like Steph Curry owns like 2. Like, there's some really incredible stuff going on there. And I think just as we age and as we age with Mavs fans and more, it's like, you just got to kind of talk about these certain kinds of players because Dirk is going to get lost to history. There's already the Fox Sports Chris Broussard, like within the last month and a half, said that he thinks Dirk is overrated.
Somebody tweeted that at us as if like, could you imagine using Chris Broussard as your checkmate? Like, I just can't.
Yeah, not, I'm sure Chris Broussard might be a nice person. Maybe he's not. I don't know, but he can't spell Memphis, and that's the thing that I will remember about him.
I can't. I just keep kind of coming back to that. That sort of like we know what's valuable in the NBA, and we know we know why Dirk is as valuable as he is, and it's literally because when your actions get broken, the bailout move is also your best move.
Yeah,
like, and that's like, I'm sorry to get like, that's like true nerd shit, is to say like, is to say that, like, you could run whatever you want for any other player, but at the end of the day, you dump it to Dirk, and it really took him what, like 5-6 seconds, like max, to kind of get to what he wanted to do. And like, it was fast and it was efficient. And like you said, you really have to, I get passionate for the exact reason you're talking about. It's because you have to fight for Dirk's accomplishments. You know what I mean?
Because there's just like one of the things that, and you guys did like a podcast with Victor Wembanyama very recently, and it's just a steady reminder that there is a constant influx of some of the most amazing athletes to grace the planet. And people get bumped up and down lists, that's fine, but you should still talk about players, because frankly, that's what, like, we watch this. Like, legacy is interesting to me. It's fun. And the Mavericks have been blessed with multiple very important players over the course of their history, and Dirk is just, the Mavericks do a great job of honoring Dirk's legacy, almost to the point of where it feels like the old meme where it's like, if something's going wrong with the Mavericks, they trot out Dirk and he's the flex tape that they slap on the bucket. But there's a reason for that. He's that important. So it's sort of where we are. 25 minutes so far. I am having a great time, but I also think you should get back to your day. Do we have other things we want to kind of cover while I've got you on the show for the first time since I've gone to video?
I'm just so fired up about this.
Yeah. Okay. It's going to power you through the day.
I just can't, I can't because it's just one of those things that I when you philosophically sort of talk about what it means to build a franchise around a player, and you talk about what it means to even be in your prime and what that means, I just like, I feel like Dirk wins all of the little check marks that are kind of just like, okay, in physical prime, peak player prime, I'm still taking Dirk. I'm still taking Dirk in a 7-game series because we know what he's going to give. KG might be off offensively one day. Like, it's just valuable to have a player who can run to the rim and then also make 90% of their free throws.
That's right.
So, and then when I'm talking about prolonged greatness, I'm taking Dirk again because he played and evolved his game in such a way that made him unbelievable. Like, his most memorable moments as an NBA player were arguably not his prime. And that is a fascinating note.
There's like 3 or 4
nearly as athletic as he was. And I think that's why when people look at it, like you said, when people look at his career and they say, well, like, he would get cooked by Anthony Davis today or whatever it might be. It's sort of like, oh, well, no, that was how he evolved his game. He became a precise, intelligent, sharpshooting player. But 2005, 2006 Dirk, forget about it. That guy, he was absurd and athletic and fast. And so that's, to me, where it kind of goes like, this is still, I really can't get over how silly this conversation is. I just can't. And when KG eventually won, it was like with a team, a super team, like a legit super team. And you're kind of just like, so that's really what you're throwing at us is that KG won with a super team.
It was an incredible title. It was
an incredible title, but was it
was it KG's title?
Yeah, it's so strange. It's so strange.
And that's kind of I even think Celtics fans would say no to that. Like, it's the most interesting titles to kind of casual yet consistent NBA fans, I think over the last 25 years, would be the Dallas Mavericks and the LeBron James 2016 Cavaliers, because it was kind of honestly stories of individual triumph to a certain degree. Triumph over demons, really excellent stories. And the Dirk thing, for anybody that wasn't there in 2011, I mean, the Mavericks were just such terrible underdogs the whole time. And there was reason, because from 2006 to 2010, they failed in truly horrifying fashion year after year. You have 2006, which we all know what happened, but just to recap, they go up 0-2 or 2-0. The Dallas Morning News basically leaks that they have a championship parade route. The Heat storm back and win 4 straight. Truly embarrassing. Awesome. You know, refs, call refs, call it what you want. Losing 4 straight is a special kind of loss. Come back in 2007, you go 67-15 in the regular season, only to lose in the first round to a Warriors team, which maybe you shouldn't have played if you didn't tank the last game of the regular season. At least I'm pretty sure how that went.
Yeah, totally.
I can't remember. So there was also, it was either 2008 or 2009. I think it was 2009 when they played the Nuggets, and the story about Dirk's then fiance, who was essentially a professional scammer. That story broke during the playoffs while they were playing the Nuggets. And Dirk was putting up truly insane numbers, only to have to get questioned by Charles Barkley about his personal life. I will never understand why Dirk is friendly with Charles. Charles says, Charles has said some of the nastiest shit about Dirk on television, like called him, mentally weak and all sorts of stuff. Why? It's truly nuts. Only to come back at age 32 and go win the title over what was considered to be and they really were. The Heat were a terrifying team. I still contend if LeBron James had played the way Eric Spoelstra wanted them to, the Heat would have won that series. Only LeBron's a butthead and a bad GM. There's just a lot to Dirk. And unfortunately, I think what a lot of fans remember, because of the advent of HD television, most of the highlights you get of Dirk nowadays, with the exception of my man Panda Hank 41, who is doing the Lord's work, basically combining all this stuff, because the Mavericks don't do a great job of it. There's a lot of old shuffle Dirk. It's like a lot of it's just not the same guy. And so that's really where we were. So
yeah, I agree. And I sort of I want to end this part of this discussion with just saying that I really don't get worked up about a lot.
No, I try to work you up to get you to come on.
You do.
You're like, nah.
But this one is legitimately so stupid. And I'm going to say it. I'm not even dancing the line of what's a fun argument? It's not even fun. It's not even interesting. It is, if I want to win basketball games, if I want to build a team and then win basketball games, Dirk is the player I would pick over KG 1 billion times out of 1 billion. And I think if you were getting paid and your career was on the line, you were a general manager, and you were faced with that exact same thing, 1 billion out of 1 billion times you would pick Dirk.
Sure.
The end. But enjoy your Twitter arguments, enjoy your likes, enjoy all the weirdness. It's not even a question. And I do want to clarify one thing too. Sorry, I have to do this. A lot of folks are like, they point out the record and they say, how could you say this? How could you say it was nearly every time or whatever? And a lot of that had to do with the fact that those responses are I can tell if you've watched the games or not kind of responses. Because yes, team record wise, Dirk still had, again, a large percentage more wins than KG against him, but it was really that head-to-head. If you were watching and you were paying attention, Dirk was better. Dirk was better, especially in games that were head-to-head, and it was nearly every time. So that's what I would say. That's how I can tell if you watched or not. Is there anything current, or are we covering any current events?
We certainly can. I mean, I irritated my podcast audience on Monday night when I sort of have adopted what's become like the national line that the Mavericks, they kicked off free agency, going and getting Kyrie. No need to relitigate that, but I sort of felt like they, I know why they had to keep him, but there's just elements of it that I don't fully agree with. But that's certainly not a hill I'm willing to like die on based on some of the Twitter guff I've gotten. They got Seth Curry, which is interesting and hilarious. Josh Bowe and I kind of think they have to have something else cooking past that. They have signed Dante Exum, which I think that move sent a lot of Mavs fans over the edge. But just based on the way free agency has gone today, because there's a couple of restricted guys that are on the market, the day two signings weren't very interesting for day two signings, but that's also because there's not really anybody on the market worth like really breaking the bank for. There's a lot of Mavs fans that are hoping for PJ Washington. Don't really see how that's possible, though. I would love it. The Mavericks have placed they are signing Matisse Thybulle to an offer sheet. That's intending to happen whenever that happens. I'm not sure, but it starts the countdown clock where it's like they have X number of days. I have two people that I talk with that feel strongly that Portland is going to try to retain Thybulle. I think what the Mavericks are doing is attempting to capitalize on the chaos that is currently going on in Portland, which is smart. The problem is Matisse Thybulle stinks. So, did you know how many rebounds a game he averages?
Did you think he stunk in Philly?
No, but he's also funneling players to an MVP candidate. Like here, he's going to be funneling someone to Dwight Powell. Like he's a gambler. He's 6'5". He's not this 6'9" lengthy arm guy. Like he does have he actually does have pretty good wingspan, but it's just like his calling card is benefited by a solid team structure of which the Mavericks do not have. Does that make sense? So it's less it's the expectations surrounding him. Like he'd have to come in and be a defensive stopper. And I'm not sure he's that guy. Actually, I'm pretty sure he's not that guy.
I get that. I'll give you my general take, which is optimistic.
You're always optimistic.
No, I'm not. I don't know if you followed me.
I did like the draft. We've been very happy with the draft. I think as a fan base.
I have I was pretty negative last year, and in sort of like in a big picture hindsight, I think in some ways it was warranted for fans to be negative. I think it was like, it's one of those things where it's very easy to judge a strategy after the fact. Now, granted, we felt pretty strongly during it that it wasn't going to work, but I keep thinking back and I'm kind of like, it wasn't 100% foolproof, like the Mavs have to, re-sign Jalen, whatever. Like there were some people that were not in on it. And so it's sort of like they picked a strategy. They went with the strategy. What I'm happy about is that they did follow through, that the things that they sacrificed, which the assets that they sacrificed for Kyrie, that at least we'll get a chance to see if it works out, which is like really what I want. Like, honestly, it's like, all right, we really blew some things up. Let's see how it plays out. So I'm choosing to be optimistic. I'm choosing to sort of forget the past right now, because I don't think it's healthy to sit there and think of things that happened 2 summers ago. So no. I'm glad they re-signed Kyrie, because again, the players that we gave up for him, it was a bummer, and at least we get to see if it works out. At least it wasn't for nothing. And so I'm glad they did that. I like the draft picks.
Yeah.
Free agency, I'm completely with you. It feels like there's more brewing.
There has to be. Otherwise, it's like.
But where we're starting from last season to this, I already feel like we're in a much better place.
Oh, sure.
Like literally all it
JaVale McGee. We were wrong.
Literally all it takes is like all it took was like a training camp, and I feel like even then, some of the Luka Kyrie offensive stuff will hopefully work itself out. So I'm pretty optimistic. Yeah, that's it.
See, the Luka Kyrie stuff is already overblown and overwrought because they play awesome together. The question is, how do you build around them? And the things that I am a little bit frustrated to date are I don't think they've done anything to really satisfy some of the shortcomings that occur both like defensively and rebound wise. And they have to figure that element out. Now, if they don't get Thibault, let's just say Portland matches. Let's say Dallas doesn't get another wing. What I am sort of talking myself into is truly weird, bizarre Don Nelson in 2000 style lineups. Put Luka at the 4. Let Kyrie run the show. Let Kyrie run. Take advantage of the thing that Kyrie is good at, which is open floor chaos and scoring. I mean, he averaged 27, 5, and 6 with Dallas, Kyrie Irving did. And that was kind of not getting – there was no real flow with what Dallas did because they're like Luka was injured. So it's like if you're looking for like an optimistic side of things, let's just get weird. I think on a given basis, like on a night-to-night basis, the Dallas Mavericks are still a really scary NBA team to play night in, night out. Now, playoffs, kind of a different deal. But as I said to one group chat I'm in, you got to make the playoffs for this to be a discussion. And so I think part of what Dallas did last year, and they didn't realize it until it was about 10 games left, I don't think they understood that they were in danger of falling out of the playoffs. Like they just kept assuming the ship would sort of right itself. And then all of a sudden they're at 11 and it's like, oh no. So now this upcoming season, we're going to get a lot more Luka because Luka's going to want to win NBA awards because I believe he is driven by success. You know, I don't want to say accolades, but like all these NBA players want to be recognized. It's just a fact. So if you get more games out of Luka, you hope for a healthy Kyrie. He played through that really, like, I don't know if you've ever had it, but plantar fasciitis is incredibly painful. And he played through it for the last, 10, 12 games a year. There's just enough to say, all right, these guys could come out of the gate early and shock the shit out of somebody. That's kind of where I'm at. The talent, you just cannot ignore raw talent at the top of a basketball roster. They have 2 NBA All-Stars, 2 starting NBA All-Stars, a first-team All-NBA player in Luka, a former second-team All-NBA player in Kyrie. That's kind of where I'm settling at. Now, I look forward to seeing how the other pieces fit, and I hope they do more. I'm not a Thibault guy, like I said, but okay. Like if they do it, I'm not going to.
I think that there's the one thing I'll say to you as a friend. I think that there is upside to Thibault, and I don't think Portland was a great sitch.
He was pretty good there, though. He shot nearly 40% from 3. I didn't think it's fake.
I still think that, like, Luka has a LeBron quality to him that makes players better.
Sure.
And Thibault, I think, is like, I think he's like a high character dude. Like, I like it. I'm into it. I'll just say that I'm into it. I hope it works. I mean, but like it could go either way. It really could. But I see why they do it, given the options available. It's kind of like, so I'm into it. But yeah, no, I think you said it great. Like I said, optimism. I'm forgetting the past. I'm a goldfish.
Have you guys gotten to talk to either of the Mavericks rookies? I can't remember. I don't always keep up with your show. Don't hate me.
No.
We guys do a lot of content.
We've only spoken to one rookie. It's this guy out of San Antonio.
We know him. Pretty good guy. Great interview. Great interview. He kind of sounded like a self-help guru at times, which tickled me.
It was pretty amazing. It was like, but honestly, like, yeah. I mean, I was really impressed by him, and his Star Wars takes were really interesting. But
that was a youth divide. I have never heard that before. Guys, you got to go listen to this. Like the old man in the 3. JJ Redick, I think he's not everybody's cup of tea on these ESPN shows because JJ likes to have conversations, and they are built for people to talk at each other, not with each other. And that's what makes Old Man in the 3 such a fantastic podcast. After all, it was JJ who drew more out of Luka Doncic than anyone in human history when you guys had him on 2 years ago. God, that was funny. Is there any teasers you would like to push our way to get you up over 1 million? No, just it's a regular.
No. I would say no. We're gonna have a fun summer. I would say we're planning a lot of like really fun, different, weird things because. They let me kind of have fun in the summers. then we do have some pretty high profile different types of guests. So that's what I'll say.
My pitch. I have a pitch for JJ. It's he and I graduated in the same high school class, 2002. I would like for him to round up the various NBA players from 2002 and just talk about the difference in culture and basketball culture from 20 years ago, because like the stuff that JJ grew up in, and granted he kind of like helped usher in like modern college basketball, like fan hate, because he was just such a everybody hit, but basketball is just so different now. And he played like some of the guys that were out there in 2000, you got your Chris Bosh, Amari Stoudemire, like 2002. There's some really crazy guys from their draft class that I've always just followed those guys because I've started following them when I was like a sophomore in high school. But yeah, guys, go subscribe to the Old Man and the Three on YouTube.
The one thing I'll say with regards to that, yes, subscribe, please. The one thing that I'll say with regards to that is that we with that in mind, when it comes to like someone like Wembanyama, we like to judge internally. We like to judge young players by the amount of people they bring to the podcast recordings. A little bit. I feel like it's like a good little it gives you a little glimpse into what's going on a little bit. And Victor had one dude with him, and no entourage. I love this. And he was very confident. And I think that is that's a great sign. I always think that's a great sign. My favorite interviews, my favorite players are the ones that show up with like Steph had nobody with him. Dame literally was like in his practice uniform and just like showed up, nobody with him. I love stuff like that. So I don't know why,
Chris
but that's
Paul
like
even turned you. That was my favorite one where you could tell
it's such a bummer. Such a bummer. He's like my favorite now, and it's like anyways. So So hey, I just want to end this whole thing with regards to the Dirk KG debate. Like, look, I'm just a neutral observer. I'm not biased at all. I'm not. It's just...
podcast listeners, he's showing some fantastic photos of 2 photos and one framed Sports Illustrated thing. That's outstanding.
Anyways,
man, this is the best. Jason, you're always the best. You come on. I can't thank you enough for giving me some of your Wednesday afternoon. Everybody that hasn't subscribed to the show, please go ahead and do so. We will continuing to inch our way up, and one day we will pass Old Man and the Three in subscribe. No. Everybody be good. I will probably host I've been thinking about this. I'm home by myself this week because my wife's out of town with her son. I will host a live show maybe tomorrow night where we can get on, and you guys in the comments that love to talk with me and or yell at me, feel free to join. I'll be posting that up, and we'll hang out for maybe a half hour tomorrow night. Jason, it's been so great having you. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, have a good day. Go Mavs.